Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Antiquity, and welcome back to some more Starcraft 2. Just like in the first video that I had sent out for all you guys, this was the second game I had done for Lowko's coaching with IndigoStorm. Again, IndigoStorm being a Silver League player, a Silver League Zerg player, and I myself just being a Bronze Protoss, I was asked to play a couple of games with Indigo to see how Indigo does against a Protoss matchup, because that seems to be his weakness. More specifically, his weakness actually with Protoss is Colossus. Something I actually tried to go for in this game. If you saw my last game, you saw the sneaky little stuff that I had managed to pull off, and it actually worked. Now, I realized going into this game that same strategy was not going to work a second time around. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that strategy was. You'll just have to go watch the game to find out what it was. But I promise it was fun, it was funny, and it was an awesome thing to do. So this time around, though, I wanted to see if I can't pull off something a little different. So I actually tried to go for the Colossus build against Indigo to see if maybe we can't try and do mass Colossus. Again, another game where I was told by Lowko to go ahead and do the macro game, do the long game, try to avoid the early harass, the early rush, and the early pressure. Just go the distance and see how he does when we actually let him build up and max out. This actually proves to be pretty much a challenge for me, I'll tell you that much right now. So again, more standard opening stuff from both me and my opponent. We don't go for anything too super sneaky or too super tricky. He goes for the fast hatch, no problem there. Go for the gateway and the cybernetics core, nothing out of the ordinary for any type of Protoss player, at least certainly any type of entry-level Protoss player. He did go hatch first and then actually grab the spawning pool. So nothing too sneaky. I know there were definitely a couple of plays I could have done differently with mine, especially watching the other gentleman that Indigo played, watching his replays, and as he played, there were definitely some changes on the things that I can do as a Protoss player to speed up my early game. Some of the things I'm trying to bring into my gameplay now. We'll see whether or not that works. I know in this game I did try and grab that second expansion really pretty early. In that last game I grabbed that second expansion I think pretty late. I think it was right around the 4 or 5 minute mark before I actually grabbed that expansion. This time I actually grabbed my expansion really early because I wanted that income for what I was planning to do. I was planning to do that Colossus build. Actually, no, I wasn't. I was planning to do something entirely different. Because again, that's right, I knew I wasn't, Colossus still wasn't going to work. So I wanted to do something completely different, something completely new, and so I actually managed to try and pull it off a little bit here. Definitely a lot of misplays from me in this game. My opponent just spot on all game long. So again, I bring my guys down, bring what little army I have down, see if I can't try and get the block off, and he kind of misclicked there. He should have just kept on trucking, because the only information he gathers is that I've taken a natural, and that's it. He's got no idea of the tech that I have warping in here, and how many gateways I'm sitting on, what kind of gas I'm sitting on, nothing. He should have just kept on trucking. Problem is, and this is definitely one of my own personal weak falls, is that I am really bad against walling against anybody. So unfortunately, when he actually sends in a second scout here in a little bit, he will see my plan coming a mile off. We do see him take a third expansion really pretty quick again. Something pretty, as far as I can tell, pretty standard for a Zerg player. Did look like he was actually supply blocked for a good little while. I was sitting at 44-44 for a good little while. A lot longer than I think he really wanted. But again, this game he just did so much better. He applied that early pressure so much sooner and for so much longer. It actually kind of gave me a bit of a trick and a bit of a challenge. So he comes rolling in with a ton of Zerglings, and by now I had already was starting to work on the tech towards what I was planning. Something I didn't know about, because again it's something I'm bad at, is just scouting. I didn't know we had this pile of Zerglings sitting right here at my natural third for the longest time. If I had actually scouted with either a probe or rolled my army out towards my third to see if I could get ready to take it, I would have saw this mass of Zerglings here and could have saved myself a little bit of pain and trouble later. I brought these stalkers down here because of what I was planning and coming up, that being Stargate. That's right, folks, I was going for some Void Ray play. So he had done Mass Roach and Ravager. Well, let's see if I can go a little bit of Sky Toss and see if I can pull that off. and just do a bunch of stalkers right behind it, and I think that might have been a little bit of my downfall again. I seem to do this heavy zealot stalker play rather than trying to bring in, like, say, sentries or adepts, especially against Zerg. Right there, we had a quick little pause. I believe Lowko was giving him some coaching, so he had paused there for a couple of minutes during the game, which I didn't have any problem with. I was happy to be doing this in the first place. Definitely a misclick by him. Could have saved himself a Zergling if he'd actually come booking up the stairwell here. And sure enough, again, that lack of a wall off completely. He gets right around all my stalkers, comes right into my base and sees the Stargate play. And the Stargate's sitting in play, and he knows that something is warping in. I imagine he probably got the click on that and saw that there was a Void Ray coming in. I'll clean this up just fine. It's only a handful of Zerglings, but the damage was done. I was trying to keep this hidden right here so he didn't know Void Rays were coming his way. By then, it was way too late. So I believe he had already started working towards getting his Hydras. So by beautiful, masterful plan of him rolling up with a bunch of roaches and ravagers, and sure enough, there's the Hydra list in. My plan of him rolling up with a bunch of roaches and ravagers attempting to take me down, and I'm just sitting there on a massive Void Rays, didn't work because he knew it was coming. Now, in this particular game, I decided that since I was rocking Void Rays and the damage was already done, that I'd wait for another Void Ray to pop on out, and that I'd apply a little bit of early pressure and see if I can't try and just kind of give him a little bit of a headache, since he's been causing me some headaches lately. So I figured I might return that in return, or give that in return. I did go ahead and bring out the Oracle. Here's the problem, folks. I have no idea how these work yet. I didn't realize that in order for them to attack the ground, you actually have to tell it to attack the ground. I'm now more familiar with the pulsar beam ability. Here we go. I decided I'm going to go ahead and roll out and see if I can't cause a little bit of damage. The real kind of goal I had with this was to cause a little bit of economic damage. And it works for a little bit. Again, my opponent's still floating a lot of minerals, and even I start to float a lot of minerals when I start working with my military and I start rolling out with an army and I'm working on this composition, or I'm working on what I'm doing with this and not what I'm doing back at home. I tend to float a ton of minerals. So I decided I'm going to roll into his third. I'm going to see if I can't do a little bit of damage if I pick myself off a free queen. Again, this Oracle doing absolutely nothing because I don't know what to do with it yet. Sure enough, there are the Hydras, and I knew that the damage was already done, so I need to start teching out to something else. So this is definitely one of my biggest misplays, is I just kind of roll in and attack, move in, rather than go straight to his mineral line like I do on this round and actually start to do some heavy damage on his econ. He brought those Zerglings back that were sitting over here, decided to bring them all back to the base, and I'm like, alright, well, let's see if I can't pick myself off a hatchery. And this is, again, another one of my major misplays, is I just kind of attack moved and just focused the Void Rays on the hatchery, thinking they might be able to do it, and I sent the rest of my army to deal with the rest of the roaches. It didn't work, and sure enough, that hatchery survives with 340 health. I just wasn't aggressive enough to stay focused and actually pull down that hatchery. I think if I did and actually stayed focused on it, I could have had myself a free hatchery, and I could have done some substantial damage to my opponent. Here's the thing, though, folks. You saw those minerals on my opponent just absolutely drop, and he actually manages to keep those really low. So he had done just an amazing, I mean, in comparison to the first game, he did an amazing job holding that line right there and pushing me back. As a matter of fact, I even told him as such. I said, "Nice hold." Seeing as how in the last game he didn't do as hot. So I decided in this particular game, all right, well, let's try and do something a little bit different. Since Void Rays aren't going to work, I'm going to need a new tech. We'll start bringing out some Immortals. We'll drop in a whole bunch more gateways and see if we can't get something going again. Try something a little new. Decided at this point in time I'd actually try and do the Colossus build. So I brought in the Robotics Bay in the back. See if I can't try and keep that hidden. That is, of course, assuming I can keep my opponent out of my base. So to add, I've got sitting on a couple of Void Rays. I got this one Oracle that's got almost 200 energy, and I have no idea what to do with it yet. I assure you folks, I figured that one out pretty quick. Bring in a couple of Immortals, bring in a couple more Void Rays to start to bring up my own my own third, to see if I can't do this again. For some reason, I want to go off to the side rather than at the natural third being over here. So my opponent here massing quite the little army, having himself a whole bunch of Hydras, sitting on 12 Hydras, 9 Roaches, and 12 Queens. He's got quite the little armies going with him, and he's actually even got the Overseer almost expecting me to have DTs, something I actually probably would have done a little bit better at, because I seem to have that built a little bit better. Managed to get myself a free Queen, and here comes his force. Just a massive good Hydra Roach force, and I should have given up on Void Rays right here and now. Would have saved myself a whole lot of pain. He just had way too much. He was sitting at +2 armor. Didn't have quite the attack for Roaches yet, or Hydras. And that was another one of my bigger faults, is that my upgrades were just lacking in the biggest way. I think if I had actually had upgrades focused where they should have been, I might have been sitting a little bit better. I just barely started the +1 air upgrade. But I did decide to go ahead and start bringing in Colossus to see if I can't wreck a little bit of damage here. I did decide to go ahead and start bringing in the Dark Shrine as well, thinking, alright, well, maybe I can salvage this with Colossus and DTs. We'll see if we can't do some damage that way. You know, at this point in time, my opponent just having a substantial supply lead over me, just absolutely huge. You know, I hadn't even managed to get my army all that much, and he did the smart thing and decided to come charging at me, which was absolutely the most perfect thing he could do at this time. Seeing how he just wrecked my entire army, why not counter push as quick as you can? And definitely one of the smarter things that my opponent did in this game, and why his minerals are so low, is he decided to go not 1 but 2 macro hatches just to have the additional larva and something else to spend those minerals on. And here he comes rolling it with that massive bioforce just to wreck everything I absolutely have. And there it is. He's definitely got the victory on this one. There was just absolutely nothing I can do. But I tell you, folks, it really was just an extreme pleasure to be able to play with Lowko and help him do some coaching. It was just truly an honor to me. So I encourage you, folks, if this is a game you do enjoy, get out there, get some gameplay in. You know, you don't have to play back-to-back games for 2 hours straight, or in Lowko's case 4.5 hours, but get out there and play a couple of games. Do a couple a day just to enjoy the game if this is something you enjoy. If it's not, do the multiplayer stuff, do the co-op stuff. Starcraft 2 has got a lot to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in the next one.